Hey, Alfero Geek Toolkit. Today we're going to do a review of the Ortur Aufero Laser 2. Now it's a mouthful, but I'll break it down and tell you what each of those means. We're going to do the typical things in my reviews where I talk about the technology so that you learn something about the technology. This is a diode laser, which is a very interesting type of laser. They're getting very popular. They're very, very low price, great entry-level lasers to get into, but also very versatile and powerful. We'll show some of that in the video today. We'll talk about the technology. I'll also show you what you can do with the laser, because I personally don't like watching reviews where they talk about things like, well, it goes 10,000 millimeters per minute. That to me is useless. It doesn't tell me as a user anything. I want to know something like how long does it take to make a coaster or something like that. So that's actually the project we're going to do today. We're going to build a coaster, so you'll actually do a project. You'll see how long it takes, how it works. We're going to walk through the software, show you how the software is set up. We'll talk about the specs. We'll show you how to set the project up. I'm going to use lightburn today. I'll probably switch off software on different videos, but for this one I'm going to use lightburn, and I'll show you that because we're going to do a little bit of design work. And then at the end of it, we'll talk about conclusions, other things that you should have when you have a laser, like a fire extinguisher or a fire blanket or both. You know, things like safety glasses and stuff. Because lasers they can be a very intimidating thing to get into if you're not used to them and if you're starting out. Now, I do want to say Ortur as a company has been making diode lasers. They came into the scene about 2018. They've become one of the top names in diode lasers right off the bat. They also do make CNC machines and 3D printers, so they actually have a bit of a wide variety of things that they've started getting into. But diode lasers are what they're known for. Now, they've had the Laser Master series, which is their top of the line series. That's really like their pro level. That's the thing, like if you're going to look to probably do a business or make money, or if you're really serious about this. But then they started the Alfero line. Now, the Alfero line has a CNC machine, which is a little bit confusing, but it also has the Alfero Laser 1. That was a portable laser system. That was a very small cantilever system. The Alfero Laser 2 that we're going to review today is actually a 490 millimeter by 490 millimeter. It's 15 by 50 inches. I'm sorry, 390 by 390 millimeter grid system. It's a much more of an XY style where you set it on top of something. Now, what's cool about that is you can do something very, very large, or you can mount it to your workbench and have it go very, very fast. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about speeds and some of the things I've learned about it. Okay, so the first thing we should talk about is what makes this laser different. Right off the bat, the three things I want to talk about is the style of the laser. It's a lot of lasers I've seen, they've kind of been big and bulky, all black. There's not a lot of style put into them. This one has a very low profile, so that's not just for looks. It actually makes it more stable, allows it to go a bit faster. It's also a beautiful silver look all the way around with like rounded edges. They put some really like design work into it. Another thing that's really cool is the protection shield that's on the front of the laser, or on the bottom of the laser, is magnetic. It's actually removable very easily. I love things that are removable, that are magnetic, that when they're done correctly, because I can remove that shield very easily if I have it getting in the way of something. Now, when you do a manual focus on these, you have to have it about 2 millimeters above the piece that you're working on, and that is super tight. If you're using like magnets or something to hold down your stock, then the shield might hit those. So being able to take that shield off gives you more clearance, and that is very, very nice. The other thing about diode lasers is you're really trying to do a trade-off between your engraving quality and speed and your cutting quality and speed. And what Ortur has done with the Alfero Laser 2, is they have made it so that the actual laser module is swappable. And what they have is three different varieties. They have an engraving that's very good at engraving, but isn't really meant for cutting at all. That's kind of like their least powerful version, but great for engraving, which sometimes that's all you need. Then they have a middle of the line one that is really, really good at engraving. It's a bit more powerful. This is the one we're reviewing today, and it's also capable of cutting. Now, when it's able to cut, it does not have an air assist, and I'll talk about that in a second. The third version is the same power, but it's a longer focus, and that longer focus makes it better for cutting because you want to be able to cut through material, so you need a longer focus beam. But also, it has an air assist port on it that you can add air to. Now, an air assist, for those that are getting into lasers, an air assist does a number of things. One is it blows away the soot and such as you're cutting. That makes it really nice to have a nice clean cut and to keep going deeper, faster. You're going to get a faster, deeper cut with that. You're also going to get a cleaner cut because you're not going to have as much soot on it. So you get a nice, clean cut on it. Now let's talk about the technology. It's a diode laser. A diode laser is a visible light laser. Visible light lasers are not capable of cutting acrylics that are clear. That's just a limitation of them. Now there are, of course, workarounds where you can like color the acrylic and be able to work around that a bit. But just to know off the hand, if you're going to cut clear acrylic, that's not the thing that this is great at. That being said, darker acrylics it can cut, great at engraving and cutting wood. Visible light lasers typically require a lot less power to do what they do. You're going to see, like, if this is a 5-watt laser, you've probably heard of other lasers that are 40 watts, and you might think, well, this seems like it's a lot less powerful. It's a different type of laser. Diode lasers are very different. Now, diode lasers, one of the downsides of them is they have a rectangular shape on them. So what the manufacturers work to do is push that shape size down as small as possible. That way, when you're cutting horizontally and vertically, you get as consistent of a cut, where if you use a rectangle and you don't push that dot size down, you have too big of a rectangle, your horizontal cuts will be wider than your vertical cuts, and that will show up also in your engraving as well. So when we look at engraving quality, that will be really important to show, did they really push that dot size down? But also, it's good to understand what that feature is and why it's important when they talk about dot size. You'll see that a lot in any of the diode lasers. They'll talk about what is their dot size, and that's why. Now, another thing that diode lasers are not capable of is they're not capable of actually cutting or engraving metal as they are. They can, however, mark metal, and there are chemicals that you can put on the metal to enhance that marking, to make it like a very black label onto a metal that's a permanent look. So, you spray that on, it might be clear, the laser hits it and darkens it and burns it, but it ends up being perfectly clean and clear and then permanent. So while it can't do that, there are technologies or there are workarounds, again, for marking metal. But it's good to know that if you're looking to cut metal, etch metal, if you're going to do like knife blades, a diode laser just as a technology is not what you would choose. The other thing I talk about with any diode laser is what kind of software does it support? Does it have a proprietary software? Does it support open source? Is it an open standard? This uses the GRBL firmware, it's pronounced Gerbil, and that is basically an open standard software that allows it to work with a variety of softwares that are out there. Now, that firmware is what runs the laser. The software talks to the firmware. The softwares that are out there, there's a free one called Laser GRBL or Laser Gerbil, and there's another one called Lightburn. Lightburn is a $60 license for their Gerbil license, which is the one you would require for that at the time of filming. Lightburn is not only laser software to control the laser, but also design software. So if you want to add some letters or fonts and you want to change the size, you want to do layouts, and you want a more visual look, then that would be the way to go. That's the one I'm going to show today, and I'll give you a demo and you can kind of see what I mean by the design capabilities of it, as well as being able to control a laser. The second thing I want to talk about is assembly, and I want to talk about gotchas because I think that's the most valuable thing I can do with the time given to me to tell you about this laser. Let's talk about the things that caught me up on it or that I missed. Now, it has a great assembly guide online. It comes with QR codes for like the assembly guide and the video that basically shows you how to put it together. I highly recommend the video. They did an excellent job on the video, but combine it with the assembly guide. That's really important. The video shows you how to put together one of the 3 laser heads, and I found that the laser head I had a little bit of a different setting on top. It actually required a Phillips head screwdriver, whereas in the video they show it with a Allen key wrench. The Phillips head screwdriver was the only tool that I needed to really put this together. Everything else was included. It's basically 8 screws. There's 4 on the ends, or I'm sorry, 8 bolts, 4 on either end, and then there's 4 on the sides. Now, when you're putting the ones on the sides, there is a ground loop that you have to put it through. So watch out for that and slow down when you get to those. Make sure you watch the video once through. It's only about 3 or 4 minutes for the entire install video, I believe. The thing about the ground loops that I thought was really interesting, when I saw them, I was kind of curious, why did they have ground loops on this and what are they doing? They're actually grounding the machine to its chassis, from what I can tell, because it builds up static electricity as it moves. When you look at how their plug system is, their plug is very lightweight. It's just a DC transformer that goes in and gives it 12 volts. Now, I have a feeling, based on some of the support that they had on their other systems, what was going on is the laser, as it moved, was building up static electricity, and that was actually jolting the board and resetting it. So the reason I say that is, if you see the ground things, you're like, why would you have to ground this? Please do. If not, you may find your laser doesn't move in the middle, or if it's turning off, make sure you double check your grounding. There's 3 ground points that you should be aware of. Make sure that you hit all 3. The other gotcha, and this one I actually had to open a support ticket, which I'm glad I did, because then I get to tell you about how support went as well. But the other gotcha was the front screws were on too tight. And what that does is that forces the front bar onto the belts, which grinds the belts. And the symptom I saw is when I was moving at a certain point, the entire head of the laser would grind. So if you see grinding or whatever, check your belts, make sure your front's not over tightened. I actually had to back them off quite a bit to make it work. Now I want to talk about support, since I brought that up. When I requested support on this, I went to the website, I submitted my ticket, I immediately got a ticket back saying that they received the request, which is pretty standard nowadays. I appreciate that. And I think it was on a weekend, so like Sunday I didn't get anything. That, you know, they I don't believe work on Sunday. But then Monday, I had an answer. Now, the thing about that is the answer that they gave me was very, very detailed and included a number of steps for me to go through if the first answer did not work. Now, the thing is, the first answer was basically back the screws off, and it worked perfectly. But I appreciate the depth that they didn't just kind of one-off me and say, hey, try this. And they had a very good, easy to follow technical description of what I had to do. So I really like the support on that. I like the speed of how fast they came back. And I also love when I do my reviews, I love kind of testing out the tech support, because I think that's important to see, like, how do they respond. I don't tell them I'm a reviewer. I just say, hey, I have a problem, and see what happens. Okay, so once you have the laser set up, you basically have 2 wires. You have a USB wire that goes into your computer, and then a power wire that goes into a power plug. From there, I'm going to take you into the actual setup using lightburn, and then we'll actually do our first project. We're going to do a coaster. So let's get to that now. Okay, the first thing I want to show is how to connect the laser to the lightburn software. So all I have to do really here is I'm going to click on devices, and I can say find my laser. Now let me turn the laser on. That is important. It does have to be on. So I'm going to make sure I have power to the laser. I'm going to press the power button for 5 seconds. And now I'll click find my laser. And I'll just click next. It's basically scanning through the COM ports, or the serial ports on there. And it finds the laser right there. And it actually knows, communicating with the firmware, how big the laser is. So I don't even have to set up or configure anything. It knows that it's a 390 by 390 millimeter or 15 by 15 inches. I can click add device and give it a name. And now we just set what's called the home position. The home position, or the origin, is where you start out when you're lasering. Now, some lasers have what are called limit switches. We do not have those, or also they're called end stops. So we're going to turn off this auto home here and say the front left corner is the corner that we want to use. And now I'll click finish and OK, and my laser is all set up. And you can see here, this is actually my coordinate grid for where the laser could be. I'm going to simply click stop. What stop does is unlocks the laser. I'll explain that for a second, because it took me a second to figure this out. It's actually one of the frequently asked questions. The laser locks itself when it first connects to lightburn. It does not allow it to move. So if I were to try to jog and I were to look in the console, I would see that it was locked. This is really handy because now I can place it over my work area. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to focus the laser on the work area. I'll make a quick note here to just say, you notice these metal pieces, these are actually on top of magnets. The reason being is the boards will warp, and you want your board to be totally flat so that when you focus your laser manually, because it's a fixed focus, it needs to be the same distance away all the way around. If the board's warped, it will mess up your focus. So now I'm going to focus it real quick. Okay, so I focused the laser, and what I need to do now is I need to re-zero it. So I'm going to move it back down to the lower left corner. And then I'm going to reset it. So I've disconnected it and reconnected it. And now I'll just show you, if I hit jog, it doesn't move. And if you look here, you see G code locked out during alarm or jog state. When you see that error, and this is the reason I did the demo, you want to click laser and click stop. So get position. There we go, XYZ00. So now I know that the laser is in the front left, it's in 00. I can now click and move the laser around again. I'm going to show you a different way to move it. You can click this location thing here and then just kind of click on the grid and move a little bit quicker. There's an enable laser fire button that you're going to want to turn on. And then there's a laser on when framing. I'm going to turn that on myself as well. And now I'm going to go get my laser glasses, my safety glasses on. Okay. What this does is it allows the fire button, which is this button here, to work. So I'm going to turn on just a little bit of tiny power. And then when I click that, you see a light turn on at the top, and it's actually firing the laser right now. And I can use that to actually orient the laser on what I want to do here on my workpiece. Now I'm going to jog around a little bit to get up to where, there we go. So now I can see here where this dot is, that's where the laser is on the entire workpiece. Now the camera doesn't cover the full thing, so you know, if it looks like it's a little bit high, it's just where the camera's pointed right now. Now we're going to actually switch from the setup. We basically set up, we can move, we can actually start cutting and stuff now. We're going to switch from the setup to actually doing a project. So that'll be the next thing. All right, let's show you how to set up a project. First thing you need to do is to get some content. I really like this Pixabay site. It's got a ton of images, and I found this one right here, which is an Ouroboros. You can see it's free for commercial use, no attribution required. So this is a great site if you're setting up a business and you're looking for stuff. There's some great artwork here. So we're going to copy this Ouroboros. We'll just copy it right into lightburn here, and you can see that just went right in. Now I want this to be 101 millimeters or 4 inches because I'm going to build basically a coaster, right? And so I measured another coaster. It was about 4 inches. So all I can do, or all I have to do here is say I want this to be 101 millimeters. And there it is. There's my 4-inch Ouroboros. I can put this down where I would want it here, and then I can click this and move the laser and get a feel for where I need my, basically my wood or my stock, whatever I'm going to cut. Now, how do we add lettering? Well, again, it's very visual. So I can just type here if I want an F in the middle of it for Faro, basically put my initials in there. I could do that. The other thing we can do here is we can change fonts very easily and get a nice visual look at what these different fonts are. So we can find something really fancy, a bit bigger, and then I can drag that inside of there. And you see, you know, I can scale it, and I'll goof with this later. Now, this would be all an engraving. So the way that works is really interesting. There's a cut layers here. And as I've been adding things, when I add the Ouroboros, it immediately detected it was an image, and it gave a default speed and power that I had set. So this is about what I engraved other stuff at, 7,000 millimeters per minute on this machine at 100% power. If I double click, you can see the details there, where things I can set it, you know, as far as things like overscanning, where we'll actually go past it and clean up things and so on. The line one, the letter showed up as a line automatically, and you can see it has settings for that. I would probably want to slow that down quite a bit. And so I can say 2,000 millimeters per minute. The two numbers that you do a lot of stuff with lasers is going to be your speed and your power, but then also your mode matters. Fill is where you would actually fill in something. Line is where you're just basically like drawing a line like with a pencil. And then you've also got image. Now, the other thing we would want to do is do a cut around this. Now, that's going to be, let's say, a circle. And so we would want something here. Now, I want to line all this up. Oh, I'm going to go to my select tool. I'm going to line all this up. So we'll just select everything here and go to arrange, and then we'll go to align centers, and then boom, everything's aligned. So again, this is one of the reasons I really like this software. It makes that would have been very hard, or I had to do it in Inkscape or something else. Now this right here, this circle, I don't want it to engrave, I want it to cut. So I actually want it to go really slow a number of times. And that's really the difference between cutting and engraving sometimes, is just speed and power again, right? So all of these colors here are different presets. And typically what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I want to make this preset what I want for a cut. So by making that green, this will do a different, you see another layer got added here. And now I can actually change what happens when the laser does this circle versus all the other stuff. So I'm going to set this down. Let's see, for cutting, I want 75 millimeters per minute at 100% power. Now this laser doesn't have an air assist, so I'll probably get a bit of charring with that. But the other thing I'm going to do is do multiple passes. I think 4 passes would work here. And what that'll do is it'll engrave all this middle part, and then it'll go through and cut 4 times. Now, one really other cool thing, and something I really recommend, is you can turn off the output here. And what happens is when I hit play on the laser, if I go to laser and hit play, then it will actually go ahead and do all of the engraving here. And if it's not dark enough, I can just hit play again and do an entire second pass, which will darken it up for me. So it's a nice thing to do. Once you cut, you're kind of done, right? Like if you cut through this and it falls down, you're done. So I like to do engraving, make sure my engraving looks good. Then I can flip these 2 off over to the output, and then I can turn on my circle and I can focus on that. And if I am worried about these, like, they're distracting, I can actually say don't show them and just focus on the circle. One other thing I want to show is the frame feature here is it will actually highlight the area. Now it highlights the area by moving around it, but that's really useful if the laser is on. But you see, I can't actually turn the laser on right now. So let me show you the trick to this. Edit, and then let's see, I believe it's device settings. I always get this wrong. Here we go. And then enable laser fire button, and then laser on when framing. And you see now I have a fire button down here. Now when I hit that fire button, the laser actually turns on, and I'll actually turn it on to 1% power. You hear the fan turn on there. Now I can actually see where the laser is, and when I hit frame, I can actually see that it's framing with the laser on, which is super handy. Okay, so that's a quick demo of the software, arranging, setting up a project. I'll cut this out, show you what it looks like in the final thing. But this is an introduction of just basically what it is to actually use the software to design something that you would potentially be able to sell, honestly. So let's go back to the review. Some other observations. The focus knob is very easy to use to actually lower and heighten it. I think that's important because some lasers are not easy to use, and you really want, the better your focus, the better everything is. Sometimes when on other lasers I've had, when you tighten the focus knob, it moves it a little bit. This one was very good to like hold it exactly where I wanted it. That was appreciated. Being able to remove the safety laser glass, again, I mentioned that before, very flexible, also very, very cool. It's very fast at engraving, and it does a very high quality of engraving. So for what it's designed for, it's an amazing laser, and I really appreciated that. Very easy to use, open source software support, so everything there was really good. Some other things I want to talk about is it has safety features that if it shakes too much, if you tilt it, the laser glass, those are all great safety features that are really handy. It has a power button on the front and basically a reset button that shuts it off immediately. It does not have the big red stop button, which is nice to have, like a nice big kill switch if you're in an emergency. That's something that the higher end lasers have. It also doesn't have a flame sensor from what I can tell. So again, that's a higher laser feature, but it's good to know like what makes this, kind of an entry level versus what it's missing. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is like kind of overall performance and talk a little bit about how did it do. Now, here is a laser grid test. This was something else I burned. This is a pretty standard test burn, and I'll talk about this in another video of how to create these. But what this shows me is that at about 5,000 millimeters per minute, this thing at 100% power can get a pretty good line. And I did this at exactly that, 5,000 millimeters per minute at 100% power. That's an H.R. Geiger piece of artwork that I etched on there. I think it came out great. It's a little bit light. I would probably use some borax. So if you take borax, if you can get this in your country, you mix it 1 to 10. So one scoop of borax to 10 water. And then you use a foam brush. Where'd my foam brush go? Oh, here we go. Foam brush. Use a foam brush. You paint that on the wood, let that dry, and then you'll get a darker burn. So that's still very, very fast. 5,000 millimeters per minute. I don't think that was that long for that cut there. I'll get you some times for the other one here. Now, cutting. Cutting was a different story. It is incredibly fast at etching, but cutting it's very, very slow. Now, that's what I expected. That's exactly how they advertised this laser module. The benefit of this laser is that you can use another laser module that has an air assist built in that is very, very powerful, and it will be great at cutting. But you should know that up front. That's the whole point of this video, right? It's to tell you and teach you. If you're looking for cutting exclusively, don't get this laser module. Get the cutting one. If you want both, get both laser modules. You'll have an excellent engraving module and a cutting module that will do a lot better. This was 53 minutes to cut these 4 pieces, and they didn't make it all the way through. I've got some other cuts on the back here from another test, but this is 3mm ply, 53 minutes. So that is just showing you how long projects can take with a slow laser. Now, safety of a laser depends. You want to be in the room with the laser. You want to babysit the laser, so to speak. So, you know, having something take 53 minutes stinks. And to get a 4th pass, which I think would have been what was required to cut through all the way, would have taken an hour and 15 minutes. So I blew about an hour of my time. I wasted this piece of wood, and it did cut through. To make sure, I would have had to go an hour and 15 to get just these pieces. And this isn't even the full project I was trying to show. So, you know, cuts, this laser module is not made for cutting. It's not great at it. It can do it. That is 3mm ply. It's going to get through it. But it takes a while. And that's what I expected. That's how they advertised it. A couple other things that you might want to think about based on what you want to do. You might want some brilliant spray or some kind of spray for metal if you're going to try to mark on metal. That will help you mark on metal. That stuff's very expensive. I'll do a review of that soon. The other thing is what's called a rotary. A rotary is basically something that will turn like a tumbler. If you want to do something round, like engrave baseball bats, pencils you can probably do without a rotary. But you know, if you want to engrave something like that you need to spin it, then a rotary is an accessory that you can get to do that. And a power strip. I use power strips as my emergency stop because they're so easy to hit that power switch button and turn off everything. Or I can do 2 power strips, one just to laser, just to give me an extra button that I can turn the laser off and keep the lighting on so I can see what's going on still. So power strips I find super useful as emergency stops because it gives you that kind of extended cable, and you can just keep the button close to you. You can look if you have a lit up power button, you can know if it's on or off, which is really handy. So to me, that's like the poor man's emergency stop, but it works really, really well. So 2 other things that, you know, I think that you should be aware of. I don't want to call them downsides because it's kind of the way it's designed. Being low to the table makes it really, really stable. But if you were to get a grid, like a hexagon grid, you're going to want to make sure you get one that works for this laser, because a lot of hexagon grids bump it up a little bit, and it's not going to be able to clear that hexagon grid unless you get some extra feet to move the entire laser up, or you mount it up higher. The other thing that I found right off the bat is when it moves really fast, if you don't mount it to the board you're on and it shakes, the safety kicks in, which is good. But the safety turns off the laser. So that means that you can only go as limited speed until you actually mount it onto whatever you're doing. It has 4 screw holes. You can use those to actually hold it down. So just something to be aware of. But you know, I thought it was interesting. I had a couple of problems. I did contact support on that one too, going, why is it turning off on me? And it was because I was moving it so fast, the laser head was hitting the side, changing direction, and the momentum would jerk it, and that would be enough to turn off the laser. I'm just happy that the thing turns off when it thinks that it's falling or anything. I think that's a super valuable feature for safety, so I'm glad it does do that, but it's something to be aware of. Okay, final conclusions. Here's what I think of this laser. It's an amazing, amazing beginner laser. because it works well, very easy to put together, very, very easy to set up. I mean, all of that was really straightforward. The quality and speeds were very forgiving. If you don't get your speed right, it didn't look terrible. It actually, you know, you can always do it a second pass to get a little bit darker. It was able to go pretty fast. Everything about the laser was user-friendly. I thought that was really cool. The other thing about this laser that really differentiates it from anything else besides the speed and the style is the ability to swap the heads. That flexibility of being able to swap the laser modules very easily is awesome, because if you're not sure if you're going to cut more or engrave more, you can get the engraving cutting head that I'm using, and engraving will be excellent. And you can cut, and if you're like, wow, this is really slow, I want something faster because I found out I'm cutting more than I thought, you have somewhere to go. You have an upgrade path to go to, and other than buying a whole new laser. And I just thought that's a really, really cool thing there. Also, the price is very friendly for entry level. The things I would consider right off the bat, though, make sure that you have your fire safety stuff. Make sure you get upgraded glasses. I think that's just true of any laser. You know, they come with glasses, which is great, and there's a lot of certifications that came with to show that these are safe. But really, why go cheap on your eyes? You get one pair. So I would get the laser glasses, and then I would look for an enclosure. Enclosures are going to do a lot of things for as far as venting, ventilation, getting that stuff vented out to your outside your house, getting all the smoke out. So you're going to want some kind of ventilation, or you're going to want to cut either outdoors or in a garage that you can vent it out there or something. So have your ventilation, have your safety stuff set up, look at lightburn software, and get yourself a piece of metal or a hex plate or something to put underneath it to just protect your work surface. With that, you'd have everything you need other than pick your artwork, pick your projects, get some stock, some wood, some paper, something that you want to cut, maybe some jeans, and go to town. So thanks for watching. I'm Joe Farrow, Geek Toolkit. If you have any questions or anything, put them down below. If you have any comments or any ideas for lasers that you want to know about in the future, this is laser month for me. I've got 3 or 4 laser reviews coming out. I've got a couple of laser videos coming out for techniques. So it's going to be very laser focused before I get back into all the cool home automation stuff and things like that. So thanks for watching. I'm Joe Farrow, Geek Toolkit. I'll see you soon.